This is a thrilling and suspenseful movie that people can't help but search for plot analysis after watching it. Countless netizens have expressed that they can't understand what's going on after only watching it once. At one point, they thought the title of the movie was a thriller, but in the end, they could only say that the screenwriter was too awesome. Today, I will bring you this suspenseful masterpiece disguised as a thriller. As an albatross skimmed over the sea, it arrived at the dock of the small town. On a small cruise ship, 6 young men were preparing to go out to sea for a trip. As the ship moved away from the dock towards the deep sea, Laura, who was resting on the ship, dreamed of appearing eerily on the beach. When he woke up, he quickly returned to the ship. At this moment, Xiaomei on the ship saw Laura wake up and invited her to bathe in the sunshine on the deck. However, the appearance of an albatross above her head gave Laura an ominous feeling. As expected, before a few people could enjoy themselves for long, Ajay strangely noticed that Yang Fan was still and the wind on the sea had disappeared. At this moment, Iron Egg saw that black clouds were already pressing on the top not far away, and a storm was coming towards a few people. It was a clear and sunny day, and the sudden appearance of such weather made everyone look confused. Nick quickly used the radio to call the Coast Guard. When he reported the situation here to them, the guard stated that there were no abnormalities. At the same time, the radio received a blurry distress call from a woman, "Hello, hello." Before Nick could even inquire about the woman's whereabouts, the radio had already been cut off. To make matters worse, a distant storm had already arrived by their side. Nick quickly took the helm to confront them, while Ajay prepared to put away his sails. The others hid in the cabin, praying that they could get through this crisis. A huge wave struck, flipping the ship upside down. After the storm calmed down, a few people began to slowly come up from downstream. Unfortunately, Tsuihua found that Xiaomei had been swept away by the tide and disappeared, leaving the rest of the people waiting for rescue on the overturned small boat. As the new heavenly wing flew over their heads again, everyone was surprised to find a huge passenger ship appearing in front of them. They quickly called for help desperately, and under the dazzling sunlight, a black shadow gradually faded from the deck of the passenger ship. When the ship happened to pass by here, they jumped onto the gangway and prepared to board the ship. When Nick shouted for Laura to come over, Laura felt something was wrong and hesitated for a moment before choosing to board the ship with a few people. Upon arriving on the deck, everyone did not find anyone, but they had just seen a dark figure on the deck, and Laura felt a sense of familiarity. Seeing no one on the deck, everyone had to enter the cabin to search for Iron Egg, but accidentally discovered a photo of this cruise ship. There is also a warning about Greek mythology written below the photo, and the few people have no idea what it means. At this moment, Tsuehua quickly explained for the few people.
He cheated death. Or no, he made a promise to death that he didn't keep. I've studied it, but I can't remember. Can we just keep on moving, please?
After speaking, a few people were preparing to go to another place, but the next second, there was a sound coming from behind. Nick and Ajay immediately went to check. Ajay found a string of keys at the corner of the corridor, but did not find anyone. At this moment, Xiaomei also walked over to check the situation. When Xiaomei saw the key in Ajay's hand, she was stunned, but it was actually her own key. "We will appear here, and everyone thinks it's unbelievable." They thought Xiaomei was playing a prank until she compared the photo of the child on the key with the photo on her necklace, because that's her child.
Wait, so you had them with you on the yacht?
Tsuehua believed that Xiaomei, who had swept away, might have accidentally obtained Laura's key and also arrived on the ship. However, this statement was questioned by Iron Egg. Since Xiaomei arrived on the ship, why not meet them? So who exactly brought the key onto the ship? A few confused people had to continue searching inside the cabin. They accidentally arrived at the banquet hall in the cabin, where fresh fruits, food, and playing instruments appeared in front of them. When Ajay asked what time it was now, Nick replied, 11:30. But when Laura looked at her watch, it was stuck at 8:17 in the morning, at the same time as the hands on the boat, which made Laura think deeply and feel extremely scared. At the same time, he vaguely felt someone behind him staring at them. When Laura turned around to look, indeed, he saw a figure flickering past in the mirror. "I saw someone." Ajay rushed out immediately to search for it. At this moment, Nick also sensed that things were not going well and was ready to help. Laura followed closely, and Iron Egg and Drunken Flower planned to stay in the banquet hall, waiting for Laura to tell Nick that Ajay might be in danger, because since he arrived on the ship, he felt that this place was very familiar, and he felt that he might have been here before. Faced with Laura's words, Nick thought he might have been too scared to cause panic. When the two were still arguing about it, the sound of water flowing came from the other end of the corridor. The two soon realized that the sound of water flowing came from room 237. When Nick and Laura entered the bathroom of the room, they found a reminder written on the mirror to go to the theater with blood stains, leaving them confused. Laura realized something was wrong and prepared to go to the banquet hall to search for Iron Egg Drunken Flower. The two of them would disembark together. Nick, however, believed that Laura was having wild thoughts, so he followed the prompts on the mirror and prepared to go to the theater to explore the truth. But in the blink of an eye, Iron Egg and Suihua ran out of the banquet hall. It seemed that someone had just told them to go to the theater and meet up with a few others, but Suihua found blood stains on the ground. Following the bloodstains, he arrived all the way on the deck outside, but coincidentally, he could also enter the theater from here. But the two people who came here did not find anyone else. At this moment, Laura, who returned to the banquet hall, realized that Suihua and Taidan were nowhere to be found, while the food in the banquet hall had become rotten. While Laura was still looking confused, there was movement coming from behind. He, who was hiding behind the pillar, noticed that his sister was covered in blood. Returning here, when Laura wanted to ask what had happened, Ajay grabbed his neck and pressed him down to the ground. Laura struggled but accidentally stabbed the wound on the back of Ajay's head. Ajay was grabbed by Laura and bumped into a nearby stool, where she immediately received the boxed lunch. While Laura was still looking frightened and unsure what to do, gunshots rang from the theater above. Upon hearing the news, Laura quickly arrived at the theater. Laura, who came here, saw that Nick had been shot dead. Before he could ask what was going on, Suihua rushed up and questioned Laura.
Said you shot him! What? I didn't want your life!
Laura paused and explained that she was still in the banquet hall just now. How could it be that she killed Nick? But the two firmly believed that it was him who did it. Iron Egg was curious why Laura called the two of them to the theater, but Laura looked innocent. Although she had never said such a thing before, when Suihua wanted to refute Laura, he was suddenly hit by a shot from above. Immediately after, Iron Egg was mercilessly hit and hid behind a stool. Laura noticed a masked person attacking him from above. Taking advantage of the opportunity for the masked person to exchange eggs, Laura originally intended to plant emerald flowers, but was immediately attacked again by the masked person. Laura had no choice but to quickly escape from here and travel all the way from the theater to the kitchen. He quickly grabbed his weapon and hid under the counter, ready to counterattack, but he found that the masked man had not chased in. So he quickly ran out and came to the upper deck outside, because the prompt said there was a lifeboat to escape from here. However, Laura found that there was no lifeboat hanging on the wheel above, so he had to go back to the next deck. At this moment, a rapid sound of footsteps came from the upper deck. In the blink of an eye, the masked man held a gun and directly knocked Laura down to the ground. Laura was so scared that she kept retreating, praying that the masked person would not harm herself. Seeing that the masked person didn't intend to let go of her, Laura took the opportunity to grab the gun and avoid a disaster. The masked person was knocked down by him, and Laura took the opportunity to jump to the next deck through the guardrail and quickly escaped. At this moment, the masked man also chased after him closely. He fired 2 more shots at Laura and found that there were no bullets left. Laura planned to continue jumping to the next deck, but was hit by a gun thrown by the masked man and fell down. Fortunately, Laura is not a big deal. Laura, who arrived at the bottom deck, fled towards the inner corridor. At this moment, he discovered an axe weapon and quickly took it down for self-defense. He found a fire hydrant head on the ground, picked it up, and threw it towards the corridor, creating a false impression of escaping to the other end. He then returned to the outer deck. But at this moment, he was still found by the masked man with a weapon, and the two of them quickly got into a fight. With the advantage of weapons, the masked man was beaten back to the railing of the ship, only to be seen saying strange words to him. But the only way to get home what you have to them kill? As Laura's axe turned to dust, the masked man fell into the sea from the boat. However, at this moment, a strange sound of a record was heard in the cabin. Laura came inside to stop the record, but Laura, who was looking in the mirror, saw a sense of familiarity again. Outside, a cry for help came from outside. When Laura came out to look, she found that 5 people miraculously appeared on the overturned small boat, and they were asking for help. The following people also saw a black shadow, and Laura was directly frightened by this scene. As she watched the 5 people below board the ship, Laura quickly hid and prepared to observe in the dark. He found that several people had also seen the painting, and there was also Laura number 2 inside. Laura, who was completely confused, had no idea what the situation was, but just then, the key on his body fell off. Laura quickly left here, but it happened to explain why they heard the sound at first. And soon, he also noticed that the faucet in room 237 had turned on again, and Laura began to doubt whether she had fallen into reincarnation. When he sneaked into the banquet hall to observe a few people, he was also discovered by Laura number 2. Laura, who had escaped, arrived on the deck and saw the body of Iron Egg being thrown into the sea and being eaten by seabirds. However, at this moment, Ajay, who was chasing after her, found Laura on the deck, which made Ajay very confused. Why did Laura suddenly appear here despite being in the banquet hall? When Laura wanted to tell Ajay that another one of them had appeared here, Ajay didn't believe Laura at all. He quickly took him to look at the sea, but by this time, Iron Egg's body had been eaten and disappeared without a trace. Laura also told Ajay that the other one had just passed away in the banquet hall. Ajay, who was unaware of the truth, thought Laura was crazy, and Laura began to collapse and explain to Ajay. He excitedly hugged Ajay, wanting to explain what had happened earlier, but Ajay accidentally pushed the back of his head and stabbed the sharp thorn on the boat. At this moment, Laura realized that the reason why Ajay was injured before was all due to him. Laura quickly fled from here upon seeing this and arrived at the changing room in the cabin. At this moment, Laura has begun to doubt life. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? Until he accidentally discovered the note on the ground. Lao La opened the note and found that it was all the same sentence inside. In order to verify whether the sentence was written by himself, he also wrote it on it, and the notes were surprisingly consistent. At this moment, Laura realized something was wrong, and the clothes in the changing room happened to be worn by the masked person. Is that masked person also another self? At this moment, he remembered what the masked man had said to him. Before falling into the sea, the masked man told him not to let the people behind him board the ship. If they got on the ship, they would kill them. Laura took out the gun inside, but following the method of the masked man in front, he couldn't even take action. At this moment, he accidentally discovered the necklace on the iron lid, which was a photo of him and his son. He accidentally slipped his hand off, and when he looked down, the necklace was already piled up, even the one hanging on his own body accidentally fell off. At this moment, he remembered his son who was alone at home, and he wanted to end everything as soon as possible. When he returned home and arrived at the banquet hall with a gun, he saw the injured Ajay and Laura number 2. He wanted to shoot and kill this later self to stop everything. Looking at herself in front of her, Laura couldn't take her hand down. Laura too quickly fled the banquet hall upon seeing the situation. Laura wanted Ajay to prove that she didn't intentionally harm him, but at that moment, gunshots could still be heard from the theater above. Laura rushed over with a gun and saw Nick's heavy bullets as well. Without time to explain, Laura asked Iron Egg and Suehua to quickly retreat inside, and Laura also began to counterattack. The three of them successfully escaped from the theater, while Iron Egg and Suehua were still puzzled. He asked the two of them to quickly find someone else to meet and prepare to disembark, and gave Iron Egg the gun, telling them not to trust anyone. When Laura returned to the banquet hall again, Ajay was nowhere to be seen, leaving only bloodstains on the ground. He followed the bloodstains in sequence and arrived on the deck. As the bloodstains appeared on the railing, Laura did not see Ajay's body at sea, while Iron Egg on the other side was shooting at the hallway camera. It seems that someone is following the masked man off his head cover over there, and a third Laura has already appeared here. This is the masked man who attacked Laura in the theater. At this moment, Iron Egg and Suehua were completely unaware of the situation. Under his guidance, they were taken to room 237 by Laura number 3. Iron Egg was instantly wiped by her neck, and the broken flower rushed up and was also laid to the ground. In the struggle of Iron Egg, Lao Lang rushed over upon hearing the sound, while Suehua took the opportunity to escape from here, and Iron Egg quickly received the boxed lunch. Suehua, who had fled all the way, arrived at the signal cabin and found the wireless broadcast. He quickly called out a distress signal, which happened to be received by Nixon before the storm hit. Before Suehua could explain it clearly, he heard Laura's shout coming. Suehua thought it was the masked Laura who had rushed to this place and had to flee first. When Laura arrived here, she heard Nick's reply. When he tried to persuade Nick and the others to hurry back to the dock, the radio suddenly lost its signal and he had to come to the deck to look for Suehua. But the scene before her shocked Laura again. Countless emerald flowers were already lying here, and flocks of seabirds were circling here to eat. When Laura wanted to tell Tsuehua the truth, the sound of fighting came from below. The scene of the third masked Laura on the deck being knocked down by the second Laura who had just boarded the ship and then thrown into the sea. Isn't this exactly my previous experience? At this moment, Tsuehua was already on the brink of death. With the arrival of his death, everyone except Laura had already received their boxed meals, and a new cycle began below. It was only then that Laura understood what was going on. He came to the engine compartment, wanting to make the ship stop, but found that it couldn't be shut down at all. Soon, he witnessed Laura too also meeting a new round of Ajay, and Laura too was doing the same thing. In order to end the cycle, he dragged out the body of Iron Egg from the 237 bathroom and wrote a reminder to go to the opera house on the mirror. Then drag the body of Iron Egg onto the deck and throw it into the sea. Laura arrived at the banquet hall, found a new round of iron eggs and emerald flowers, told them to go to the opera house to meet with others, and then went to the dormitory by herself, wearing the crew's uniform and headgear. He just wanted to end all of this and return to the children's side. Holding a gun, he met Nick who was rushing to the theater, and a new round of Iron Egg and Tsuehua also arrived at the theater, waiting to meet with others. Looking back, Nick saw the masked man and begged him not to harm himself. Strangely, Nick noticed that the masked man was wearing the same shoes as Laura, which quickly made him recognize the person in front of him. It was Laura. Laura didn't have time to explain much, so she immediately sent Nick a box of food, and what happened next was the scene of his first visit here. Nick, Iron Egg, and Tsuehua all received the boxed lunch at the same time. He followed Laura, who had just arrived here, and knew that she was hiding in the kitchen with a knife waiting for him to choose to come to the deck and wait for the rabbit. Laura, who was knocked down by him on the ground, begged for mercy from him. Unable to bear it, he encountered a counterattack, and then the initial scene of his own escape occurred. Because of the same plot, he skipped here and said his warning words before being beaten and dropped into the sea. When he woke up, he had already arrived at the beach in the small town. Laura hurried home to find her child. After arriving at home and seeing his own child, he thought that the cycle had finally come to an end, and only then did he discover another version of himself. It turned out that all of this was still in the cycle. When the boy saw his mother Laura outside the window, he was so scared that he knocked over the paint. Laura, who had just finished cleaning, was so angry that he slapped the boy directly. At this moment, Laura outside felt regretful and decided to change everything. Laura first arrived at the door, quickly pressed the doorbell, and then went to the warehouse behind the house. She found the hammer room. When Laura arrived at the door, she didn't know what was going on. When she rushed back to the room, she quickly encountered the boxed lunch at Chongjiling. The boy was frightened when he saw this scene. Lao La told him that it was just a dream and he wanted to end it all. Laura put on her own necklace and dragged the body that had killed another of herself into the trunk of the car. When he was driving with his own child trying to escape all of this, the windshield unfortunately hit something. Lao La hurriedly came down to check, only to find that it was an albatross seabird. When he picked up the body of the seabird, he strangely heard the music playing next to the school, which was the same as the music played by the phonograph on the passenger ship. Laura was preparing to throw the bodies of seabirds to the nearby coast when she discovered a large number of dead seabirds. It was only then that he realized the situation was not good. He was still in a loop, driving to escape from here, but the blood on the glass made the boy restless. He turned on the windshield to brush it off and calmed the boy's emotions. Warm and impatient, he deviated from the route and directly collided with the train welcomed by his target. As the car accident occurred, people next to him were all attracted. A boy appeared here holding a patterned musical instrument similar to the one on the ship, but the scene showed Laura, who died in a long dress, and his child. At this point, the camera gradually changed from sunny to dark shrouded. Laura, who had rushed back from the cruise ship, stood on the side and watched the scene. It turned out that he had already died in the car accident at 8:17 in the morning, and it wasn't until the driver behind him told him that the boy had left and that the driver could take him on a journey. He chose to have the driver take him to the dock to meet him. When the driver drove to the dock, he said a meaningful sentence to him, "You will come back morning. The night Laura has already died." This is a farewell opportunity given to him by the Grim Reaper, but Laura has broken her promise and chose to go out to sea with friends. This time, Laura will completely blacken out, but it happens to explain the two different ways of death on the cruise ship. Many people are also puzzled as to why Laura did not have any memory when she set sail ahead. Here, it is speculated that after a few small reincarnations have ended, death will erase Laura's memory while resting on the ship at the beginning of the next major reincarnation, forming a perfect closed cycle. However, Laura will fall into this never-ending cycle. Laura, who knew her fate well, still chose to embark on this path of no return. Perhaps due to obsession and preference for children, there are still many details that have not been mentioned in this film. I will not go into detail here, and many of them are thought-provoking and terrifying. If you haven't understood it yet, you can take a look at the in-depth analysis.